Welcome to the Sales and Marketing for Decorators podcast. My name's John Mears, and today I am joined by the wonderful Sharon Norton-Marshall. How are you?
Thank you very much for such a great introduction, John. Yes, I'm really good. Thank you. It's great to be invited. Thank you so much.
No, thank you. A lot of the inspiration for this idea was off the back of some conversations with you, and you have a lot of great ideas to bring to the industry. So I've been looking forward to this conversation for a little while now. I'm so glad that you could come on. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah, it's something I think is really important, and certainly my passion is to be able to share the experiences I've had along the way, which seems to span quite a long time now, and for other people to benefit, because we will get challenges along the way, so we can all help each other. So I'm definitely one for sharing the knowledge.
No, brilliant. And I think you're doing an amazing job. So tell us a little bit about you, where you started, and what you do now. So you're obviously full-time self-employed painter and decorator now, but you've got a different background in and around sales, haven't you?
Definitely. It's a bit of a checkered history. I kind of look at my own CV and I'm very critical of it. To me, I always laughed with friends and colleagues saying it's a bit like a Leerdammer cheese. It's got loads of holes in it, and it's got lots of bits I wish I could scrub out, to be honest with you. But I think, really what I've learned recently, reading and listening to other podcasts of the greats, is that it's all happening for me. And I really trust that now. So I'm kind of looking back across the history, reassessing what I've been doing, what I've done, and where I am now, to really draw on all of those things, no matter how short those experiences were. So essentially, I feel like I've been in this industry all my life, because when my dad was actually not dragging me out on building sites, I would willingly go. He would say, do you want to come over for a ride in the truck today, Sharon, or do you want to stay at home with your mum and sister? And I'm like, oh, no, I don't want to stay at home with my mum and sister, because they kind of play with dolls and they cook and stuff. So I always thought it was much more interesting to go and be with the grit and the dust of builders merchants and be on site, where there was always a radio playing and a smell and the sounds, and always a bit of banter. I didn't understand banter at that time, obviously, and in fact I used to get really embarrassed when they go, all right, darling, how you doing today? And now I find I'm just more comfortable there than what I ever was in an office. so really what I think really what happened is my original journey for working was I wanted to be an estate agent. So bypassing the whole kind of, I did ballet training, theatre training, that kind of thing when I was younger. I then decided I wanted to be an estate agent. So I was very conscious about that. I wanted to get into property because my dad and my granddad were always doing refurbishments. My dad's a fantastic plasterer and builder. My granddad was always a great builder and did a lot of big contracts around Heathrow when I was small. So it just a natural progression there. I just got really frustrated with estate agency at one point. It can be quite cliquey. And being really blunt about it, you're working with a lot of women and they can be really quite bitchy. And it's just so not for me, to be honest with you. I think I'm a bit too laid back for that industry. I will, I walk the walk and I do the do, and I did some great deals, but I just felt that it was all a little bit too pretentious, and I just wanted to kind of work with people who I considered to be more real and more gritty. So I forcibly made myself out of work at one point. I was very lucky, or unlucky, but able to take part in a situation which was I got a little bit of inheritance money when my son was about 3 years old, and I decided to launch out into creating murals. So I did a paint effects course. I did stenciling and mural arts and that sort of thing. I always have been very arty, been brought up without a television, and my mum always used to say, go and draw something when I was bored. So I ended up doing a lot of arty things when I was younger. It just kind of progressed from there, really. But although I got really lucky on my very first step out, so you'll love this. This is going back right into the early days of how to market yourself. Is a good old leaflet drop.
Love it, yeah.
So I printed some cards. I can't even tell you how I got it, because I don't think we even had Vista print in those days. And that would have been about 90, probably about year 2000, something like that, maybe. And I put some cards out, and a lady ran after me when I'd only done about 10 houses in the road. She ran after me. This is in Chipperfield, and in a really nice posh road, and said, "Oh my goodness, I'm so glad I've got your card through my door. Will you come and have a look at this room?" Well, I was presented with this room, which must probably be about, 25 feet by, and notice I'm talking in feet, that's showing my age, by about 18 feet. And I thought, holy crap, how am I going to do this? Because what she'd asked for was a graph mural, which was a sort of depiction of each of the children. She was creating a playroom. So graffiti on one wall with both their names. So I just decided to kind of go, yeah, well, we could do their names in graffiti. We could do this, and I could even do a caricature of them. How about I do like a spattered ceiling as well? And I had no idea how I was going to do this. And then she showed me a picture, much like the one you've got behind you, and which was like an artist's impression, actually, not a photograph, of the Manhattan skyline. Mm-hmm. And I said, oh, that's a street artist, and they've done that with spatulas. And she said, how did you know that? And I was like, well, I can see, I know the way acrylics move. I know how paint looks when it's on the canvas. I said, I can't get you that kind of look, but I can do it in spray cans, and I can do this, that, and the other, having no idea how I was actually going to pull this thing off. Because she said yes straight away, and I gave some outlandish figure as well, because in those days, I think it was about £1,500, and they didn't balk at that figure at all for a couple of days' work. So I thought, cool, I'm on to a winner here. It went really well, that project, and I had other decorators in the house doing the other work, not employed by me, but employed by them. They purely hired me for the mural. And I turned around at one point, and they were like, oh my God, that's insane. That's really looking amazing. And I actually stood back and went, yeah. And they're like, how did you know? How did you do that? And I went, I have no idea, really. It's just a natural talent. I think it's just because of, drawing from such an early age. But more and more, I got asked to, will you come and paint my kitchen? Will you come and do this? And it was all word of mouth. Mm-hmm. But then, of course, I started to get to a point where it was a little bit harder, and then the work wasn't coming in. And that's when things got a little bit more real.
That's an incredible story to get things started. I love that.
Thank you.
Yeah, that is an absolute dream start, isn't it? Your first breakout on your own, and having someone literally chasing you down the street.
Yeah, it was a great moment. I think I actually thought it was always going to be that way, and then the reality, especially when you've got a 3-year-old in tow, it's like, yeah, it's quite difficult.
No, that's brilliant, and so that's sort of how it led into you getting more painting and decorating jobs. And I understand what you mean about in the estate agency. I think any sort of office job, it's so cliquey, there's so much office politics is what I often refer to it as.
That's perfect.
It's something that I found very refreshing when I came into this industry and started talking to decorators on a daily basis, and anyone in and around this industry. It just seemed like no one's just full of shit like they usually are in offices.
Absolutely.
People sort of just tell you what they think.
To say what they really mean. You're like, are you being serious? And they're like, yeah, I'm being deadly serious. I'm like, well, that's good. Right. Then you have to kind of think, this is a whole new ball game. Now I've got to start speaking like I'm not full of shit as well. Or I've got to start speaking like a real person. I can actually show a bit of my true side. And it's acceptable, which is nice.
No, it's brilliant. And
you get more appreciation when you're real, I think, now. And then obviously there's a whole new movement, isn't there, now? It's very refreshing to see there's this kind of whole be vulnerable, within reason. So the more you show your personality, and I think that very much leads into how you can be really successful in your painting and decorating business.
Definitely. I think being honest, being authentic, and to an extent being vulnerable, like you say, putting yourself out there. People, I've found the more I put myself out there, the warmer a reception I get. And it's once you start doing it, you think, oh my God, why didn't I just be myself right from the start? It's so much easier.
So true.
But you get pulled into this world where you feel like you have to be this, politically correct in the office and do everything by the rules and pretend to be something that you're not, and pretend to be a bigger company than you are and everything like that. And all this stuff is sort of drummed into you as that's just the way things are done.
Yeah.
And then when you start breaking away from that and you start getting better results, you think, oh my God, how has it taken me so long?
Yeah, when I was in estate agency, I can remember I took over as a manager of one of the offices of a really great brand, still going today. And a woman who was much older than me, obviously I was kind of like I was 32, I think, at the time. And she just looked at me, she stared at me, and she just gave me a real, like, right between the eyes comment, like, literally, who do you think you are?
Mm.
And I said, sorry. I had come from this very elitist kind of branding. And she said, that's not going to work here. You know, we're kind of more real here. And I'm like, and I realized I couldn't pull the wool over the eyes of somebody who's been there, seen it, done it. Her husband's had a couple of failed businesses. He had to make it in the print industry. And I was like, I could learn a lot from this lady. And I really relaxed. And I thought, you know, and if I realized I was struggling with something, I just told her. And she's like, okay, well, we'll work out. I was the manager, but I'd gone in with that attitude of, I'm the manager. This is how I want it done. And like, I realized really quickly that that's not the right attitude.
No.
Yes, you can be the manager, but you've got to, I've got way more of a kind of William Wallace approach now. You know, I tend to sort of lead by example, do the things that I feel should be done from the ground up through values. You know, so, and just showing that vulnerable side. And if I don't know something, you know, I've had somebody working with me over the last year, and he's been working on very, very high-end chalets in the Swiss Alps. So I'm very lucky to have him, actually. I know a lot of people say, oh, you know, how do you hire good staff? Well, I've kept in touch with him from working with him since he was 18, you know, and I was his manager when he was 18 and he's now 24, and he still wants to come and work with me because of what we tended to build together at that time. And he's got some great things to share with me about how they do finishing on the high-end chalets and how how they do it really badly. So we can learn as much from how people are running their businesses quite badly, also to how we can translate that into really good production in our own businesses as well.
Definitely. So what I wanted to talk about today, and I was very keen to speak to you specifically about this, is I want to sort of have a peek behind the curtain. A lot of decorators are always very interested in how other decorators run their sales meetings, their quotation meetings. And I know that obviously with your background in estate agency, and I've spoken with them, there are several decorators that I know that have had some sort of sales training, whether it's for, you know, kitchen fitting companies and stuff. Well, they'll do the sit down quotation meetings, but I'm keen to see how you structure your quotation meeting and how you check off all the bits that need to be done. I think there's a lot of decorators who sort of just walk in and rely on their natural charm and charisma, and it tends to work, but it's not a repeatable process. And I always talk to people about, you need to have systems in place to make sure that you're doing things in the right order, and to make sure, as much as anything, you need to take control of the quotation meeting and show that you're the expert and bring the buyer into your process. Otherwise, you can quite quickly get swept up into their process and end up doing things that you might not want to do. And so, yeah, I'm very interested to see, and maybe we can break this down to a step-by-step from the moment you get out of your van on the drive and you're walking up to the front door. How do you run your sales meeting to make it as effective as possible, make sure you get those good quality jobs?
Thank you. It's so important now, and I think more than ever before, the first mistake I think people could potentially make is that I'm just a decorator. I think more and more now, I think people don't tend to think I'm just a decorator anymore. You know, we're both part of some really fantastic forums that you see the comments come on and you just think, they've still got that I'm just a decorator mindset. But you see the people who perhaps a bit more experienced and they just chip in straight away. I mean, obviously I could list off a few names, but I won't. And they're great contributors to groups who then say, and I'm one of them, it's like, right, guys, we need to be the professional here. It's about educating the client. Because the more we do that, you know, I'm very lucky to be part of a fantastic mentorship program with Paint Tech, and they're really, we're hot on this. We talk, and I feel like sometimes I talk myself stupid over this subject because we need to really educate the client. So I think it comes down to that, and it's exactly what you say. Now, the first thing is, it's about mindset. So thinking about yourself as a business, and your book is brilliant for this. It does start with your mindset, but obviously this podcast isn't about mindset. So what we then have to do is moving on from that mindset and then thinking about the quotation. It actually starts before you set foot in the door, way before you set foot in the door. It's from the first moment of that call to maximize where you're going to take it before you set foot on the drive. So it's all about being controlled, just like you said, because the more people are able to look to you as the expert in your field, and you don't have to be an expert of, you know, 100 miles or so. It's just like I'm really very conscious now. I tended to want to think about, I need to be an expert to everybody in the next, you know, like 100-mile radius, and it's the mentorship group is great because, like, well, no, you just have to be an expert in your very near facility. And I've realized if I pull myself into my area, it will naturally happen by itself. So be an expert in everything you do. So it starts from the first phone call, the first email, the first contact, wherever that's coming from. And that's when the quotation mindset starts. Because you might get a phone call that I know myself, and you guys out there will know as well, that sometimes it can take 4 conversations before you actually get to the quotation. So it's about professionalism and what I'm going to do at that point. So actually what I've now started to do is when I get the inquiry, I make sure I get an email address. Mm-hmm. And I've devised a little introduction that says, hi, you know, obviously they've got access to your website. They may even have looked at your website. But that professionalism and that value starts right from that first point of call. So a little introduction about myself, why I do what I do, how I do it, the other people that might be working, just very short. And here are some unpublished photographs of a recent completed job that aren't, and I think that's quite nice because they can see that they've got access to something that nobody else has got via your website. So I've got a project I've done of a hall stairs and landing that I did last year, back end of last year, with one of my Joshes. I say one of my Joshes because I've got 2 Joshes. And then they think, oh, she's given me something that nobody else has got out there, that I can see the quality of the work that's not even on the website or Instagram or something like that. So moving on forward into the actual getting in through the front door, everything about the way you look, the way you conduct yourself, the way you speak, the way you smell.
Yeah.
I absolutely love Gordon Ramsay. You know, he's a big one on that. You know, mate, you stink. Right? That needs to be a consideration because I'm a sensual person born on, you know, we've got 5 senses and we need to actually call to those, and that's going to make a difference, guarantee you. So it becomes the control aspect of when you walk in the door, and that gives you sort of an authority. So before we started speaking, I broke it down into 4 things, which is control. It's the first thing. And I don't want to talk about control. You know, we always laugh and say, you know, women, they're trying to control everything. But for a certain element in business, you do have to be the controller of, it's like a conductor of what you're doing. So you need to own it really when you walk in. And even if you haven't got that confidence, to try and own it. And there are a number of ways you can do that, which maybe we'll talk about another time or whatever, because they look to you as an authority. So that's the next part of what I thought is the authority. So it's not about going in there and saying, oh, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that and you've got to fit in with it. It's about an air of authority. So the air that they can be relaxed in knowledge that you know what you're doing. They know you're an expert, because they get very nervous. You know, I'm a great believer in when people come into our homes and we're allowing people into our homes to do work, we're totally giving over trust to that person. You know, and I'm sure that a lot of us now have got clients who they just go, I'm just going to pop down the road to the shops, you know, don't worry about it, here's a spare key. You know, and I've got to that point now where you've got that trust. You know, the value is in trust, and the more you can build that, the more you're going to get recommended. And I know you talk about word of mouth business. It is still a very important part of your local business call. And the next
Definitely.
thing, is the rapport, is getting rapport with the people.
Yeah. Yeah, you're 100% right. Yeah, I was just going to say you said something a minute ago. You said the word relaxed, and I think that's a massive point. I think decorators, when you're any trade and you're going into different people's homes every day, it's a very relaxed situation for you. But
Yeah,
for the homeowner, it's not. They are not relaxed. They will be on edge. They're having a stranger in their home. They might have never had a tradesperson in their home before. They
yeah,
don't know the rules of the situation. They don't know what they should do, what they shouldn't do. And I think a lot of the time, when someone's considering hiring any trade to come and do some work from them, part of the stress and the anxiety about it is they might think, when you hire a trade, you've got to manage them, you've got to make sure they're doing everything,
definitely.
you've got to organize them. And I think that's a problem with the industry's image as a whole. But I think if you, from the very get-go, from the way you answer the phone call to how you follow up with that email that you were saying, which I think is a great
Mm,
idea, you're immediately just setting the standard as, don't worry, I'm in control here of, this is not my first rodeo. Here's how it's going to work. Here's the step-by-step process. You can relax. Let me take control, and I'll do that. And it's not
absolutely.
about, yeah, like you say, being an absolute control freak. It's about just showing the homeowner they can relax, that you're the professional and you're going to deliver exactly what they want, and in a
Mm.
stress-free way for them.
And a lot of time they don't even know what they want. So,
Yeah, it's a
I've
famous
had a
quote
couple of those
from
recently. Like, we don't really know what we want, and I think that's actually a really good test because, well, actually, it's saying that they could be testing you. They're like, okay, let's see, you know, because there's a double whammy for being a woman in the trade as well, because there are some people who know what they're doing, even if they're women that are the customer.
Mhm.
They spend a lot of time on Instagram. They're looking at other people doing various bits and pieces. They think they can do it themselves, and they're thinking, okay, then let's just give her a run for her money and see whether she knows what she's talking about or can deliver what I'm expecting. And women are very critical. They're very hard taskmasters. A lot of the time, this is why they say she wears the trousers in that household. She's the decision maker when you're
Mhm.
going around and speaking to the woman. So it's hard. I think it's harder to appeal to the woman in the house than the man, in a lot of the time, for us women in the trade, which is interesting. So yeah,
Yeah, I
it's that
guess I guess
knowing
having that
what you're doing.
that knowledge and that air of authority that you're saying, it might be a little bit more difficult to break down the defenses of the woman.
Yeah,
Uh, but once they realise, okay, this person I'm talking to clearly knows what they're on about. I've
yeah,
tested them with a few questions. I'm now going to relax and let them
it's
take
true.
control. Yeah, so it's sort of like they're doing their checks on you, aren't they?
Yeah,
Throughout every stage of the process.
yeah, suspicion. And like you say, they've all got different factors. I had one recently where the guy is able to be very relaxed, and she was really stressed because the baby was crying, and she had to go off and feed the baby and leave me with the husband, which is difficult. So you've got to then try and manage the situation. So once I'd been shown a different area of the house, I said, is it okay? Can we just go back into the other room where I know your wife is feeding the baby so that I can talk to both of you at the same time? And he looked at me as if to say, oh, well, that's refreshing. Because I think he just thought I was just going to come and do a bit of, not even a bit of spiel that we know as sales spiel.
Yeah.
And that I was just going to say, yeah, all right, mate, I'll put that together for you, or here's your price, and leave. But I really
Yeah.
wanted it to be about the experience for the family, and how I'm going to be in your house and how I'm going to manage that. Do you have any questions and that kind of thing? And they're always really surprised at how I run things. I had a lady yesterday, and it's an accepted quote, and she said, I have to tell you, Sharon, never been treated by a tradesperson in this way. So you were always going to get that work based on, she said, I never had a quotation like I've seen with yours, because there's a lot to read to. It's not I'm giving a lot of stuff for free. It's really important that I manage the client, manage their expectations, because like I said to her, I've devised my terms and conditions, and I know we've spoken about this before, because learning the hard way. I did a really, really small room one year, and it was full to the brim of furniture. They'd piled it into the middle of the room, and I literally had a space of about 2 feet, not 2 meters, around the whole of this pile of furniture. Now that ran over by a day, that room, purely because I couldn't get the long reach on the roller out. I couldn't fly around it like I normally do. I actually couldn't crouch down and do the skirting boards in the normal way. I had to sideways bend down, still standing, and that put a stress on me as a business, and I learned a lot from that. So this is why I put systems into place back then that are so important now that I'm doing it full time.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Yeah, you do learn from these things as you go along, but you've got to make sure when things like that come up that you put that system and that process in place to make sure it doesn't happen again.
Yeah.
So you're talking about rapport and that being the next stage, building up a rapport with the customer. Do you have any sort of questions that you always ask, or any sort of topics of discussion that you always bring up to help move that along?
This goes back to your point about how we handle getting into the house right from the time that you leave your van, isn't it? So what I do is I follow a guy on YouTube that is actually not really relevant, but for all the ladies out there, you might like to do this. It's Matthew Hussey. He calls something called owning the first 5 minutes. And that's really important because this is the time in which you're going to gain the control, look like an authoritative figure and somebody that they can trust, because you handle yourself in a way that looks like you know what you're doing and talking about. So you approach the front door, and I'm always looking to see, like, what can I do to build a rapport? And that starts with something that we have a common ground on, something that I can own the first 5 minutes. And that might be a slight exaggeration in our case, because in some points we've only got like 10 or 15 minutes anyway, and we've got to put them at their ease. So what's that going to be? So as I'm walking up the garden path, I might see a football, or I might see kiddies' toys, or I might see a really nice car in the drive. Fortunately, I'm a petrol head. I'm kind of nosy about a lot of different subjects because being brought up without a TV, I'm kind of well read on a lot of things. So, even if I see a book sitting on the side, I don't know, it might be Dan Brown or something like that, or something like that. So as you step in the front door, even if there's nothing that you can relate to, find something to talk about. So you've taken your details as you begin your conversation before you get there. You know that, say, for instance, the house is new to them because they've just moved in. So I'm relating this particularly to a house I went to recently in Bedford. I know they'd been there in there for 3 weeks, and there was nothing I could relate to apart from the fact it was a really beautiful house. So it was an Edwardian in style. So I walked in, and it was a really beautiful entrance hall. But I could see they had a young baby in arms, and they hadn't been in there long. So I was able to say to them, hey, so you've just moved in then, right? So tell me, what was your experience like? And what was your, how was your move? How did you feel? Does it feel like home yet? So you're conducting the conversation on your terms, but actually what you're doing is you're getting them to communicate with you and to relax. So I will start by saying, as soon as they open the front door, I say, hi, I'm Sharon from Norton-Marshall Decorating. Thank you so much for inviting me. Here's my business card. Now, as you get to that point, you're handing them something already. And although it's just a business card, it looks professional. They can see that you are the person they're expecting. Because I've had people knock on my door now. I've let somebody in thinking it's the plumber from the estate agents that rent my house out with. And actually, it's not the plumber I thought it was going to be. So it wasn't Ian, it was Jamie. I was like, oh, hang on, I thought you were going to be Jamie. Oh, yeah, well, we've all been in this situation where they've got 3 quotes they're going along. So giving them something, the exchange between human beings, that kind of sets up a terminal. That's quite nice, I think. And then you can say, how was your move? It's a really beautiful home you've got here. Tell me about it.
I think there's a few really important points there. Firstly, that just identifying who you are in a professional way, I think is massive, and I think a lot of people just forget to do that.
Yeah.
I had a chap come around about the gas a few weeks back, and the first thing he did is he had a lanyard on, and he showed me his identification badge. He introduced himself, why he's there, and everything like that. And that for me was, okay, yeah, that's brilliant, because now I can be very sure that he's legitimate and it's okay to let that person into my home. If someone just turns up and they've got some trousers covered in paint on and they look like they've just come straight off site, and they just turn up and they're like, all right, yeah, here to do the quote, it sets a standard, sets a tone right from the start, which is not what you want.
I will just say that I do often have the trousers covered in paint. It's just that I might put a different sweatshirt on. I like to look a little bit authentic. It's like, does she really get herself dirty?
Yeah. Yeah, I think everything like that, you've got to consider your image and make sure that you're doing everything to make the homeowner feel comfortable and assured that you are who you say you are and everything like that. And then I think opening with something that's not straight on business related, it's more, okay, let's have a conversation, let's lower your defenses, let's have a chat about your new home or whatever it is. If you can find something that you're genuinely interested in and you can have an authentic conversation with them, that's a really important and a really great way to just break the ice and just go, hey, look, I'm not just going to come in here and measure up, give you an extortionate quote and walk out. I'm here to work with you. I want to understand more about you, your needs and everything like that. And of course, in sales, I've always been told that everybody's favorite topic is themselves. So if you can get someone talking about themselves, you can have a conversation where you walk in, you ask someone a question, they talk about themselves for half an hour, and then you leave, and they'll go, "Yeah, that was a great guy. He was a really interesting bloke." And it's like, yeah, you were just talking about yourself for the whole time.
That is so right that you say that, because the more you can get them to talk about themselves, but then you have to then always have in the back of your mind, why am I here? I'm here to get information, and more importantly, find out what their need is. So you've got to find out, what is it I can give to them that's going to make me look valuable to them, because that's the other thing. You've got a very short window in which to get. Let's face it, they want the information, but they don't want you to be there very long. Do you remember the years of double glazing salesmen? They used to come in, have all that, and they start setting up all their bits, and already as the customer or potential client, I'm like, no, I've got my dinner on the oven. I don't want to be having this person in my house. I just want the information and I want you to get out. So we have to be able to control it in a certain way that we can manage our own presentation, and it is a presentation within, say, 15 minutes. And if it goes any longer than that, because you are reading from that person that they can have you in the house for longer, then that's fine, because all of those are going to be the bonus points of you gaining a rapport and building a relationship. Because it is an age-old adage, isn't it, that we don't buy the product, we buy the person. I think it's moved on a little bit from that. I like to challenge that a little bit. I think we do buy the product, but we also buy the person. So I think they're very dual mode. So I think it's really important to challenge that and say, and even if you're considered, like round here, we've got 2 decorators that their vans are branded up fantastically. And even I feel like, oh my God, I'm not as good as them when I see their vans in Tesco's. But there are things I could say about those decorators, that I don't present myself like that, and they can read. Everybody can read that in your book. It's all of those things. So, but I had someone challenge me the other day, which is Chris from Social Elevator. He's brilliant. He said to me, "Hang on a minute, Sharon. What you're saying there is not. It's not that they're the best decorators in the area. You're talking about their branding. That's visibility." And because when I see their vans, I think, oh, I'm not as good as them. And actually, I am as good as them. And I've got my own business doing things in my own way authentically. My van looks fantastic. And probably when they see my van going around, they're also thinking, oh my God, who's this girl that's suddenly come around? Because of you, I've had the van branded, So I
guarantee those decorators
saying, I've seen your van all over the place, or your vans. I was like, hang on a minute, I've only got one. I can go on. So, and again, if I can park it in a place that's visible for when I know that when I've left a house, I had a particularly hard client. This guy's in business himself. He's a young lad. He's forward thinking. He's got the Range Rover on the drive, and I could see him looking at the van as I left the house. I parked it just outside where they live. I tried my hardest to get it where he could see it as I left the house, and I could see him looking at it thinking, yeah, they're making a judgment. Does it run like, does it the business card match the van? Does the t-shirt match the business card? Does the whole thing look professional? Yes, it starts from there, you know. So.
I think that's great,
and how you're leaving off as well. So, and be very, the control element, I think it's really important to leave at a point where you feel it's on a high and just say, that's great, I'm going to leave it with me. Whatever your turnaround time is on the quotation, you know, make sure you state it and stick to it. I can't guarantee a 24-hour turnaround on my quotations, I'm afraid. So I always say, give me a couple of days and I'll send that over to you by email. I'll check through that I've got the right details. Is this the right email for you? I'll go in there. I'm a paper person. I've still got my little pad, which is it's a ring binder, a little A5 ring binder, and then I move it along there. But recently been introduced to Asana, which is a really great thing that we're using through the Paint Tech Mentorship Program, which is really good to help you with that process as you streamline them through your sales funnel. And I know we hate talking about sales funnels, but it is really relevant. It has to be, you know, the quotation then gets moved down to the next stage of the business that you can then go back to them again and keep being professional all the way through until they sign on the dotted line.
I think, yeah, I'm glad you brought up sales funnels, because I think it makes an important point. Too many people, if you ask someone what is sales, too many people immediately think of 80s car salesman, and that selling is persuading someone to do something that they might not really want to do. But for me, sales is not persuasion. It's not like that. Sales is a process, and it's taking people through that process, down through that funnel, doing things in the right order, and making sure that you're delivering the right result for the right customer. It's not about sitting there, and it's funny you say about, you know, the double glazing salesman setting up camp, and they basically
my heart used to, do you remember Kirby? The Kirby salesman used to come in as well, like, oh, can we put the Kirby on your bed? And I'm like, what? Tell me about the Hoover and get out of here. I should have said Hoover, vacuum cleaner. Yeah. But yeah, it's like, oh, and you vow never to have these people in your house again. And I know people dread the thought of getting and one of my big things is that I want to really change the kind of perception of tradespeople coming into the house, and we can only do that by elevating every single thing that we do. We can only change the industry and gain more recognition and command the high figures that we want and that we deserve by changing.
It's crazy, that whole, I think people still think about that whole attitude of set up camp and keep talking until they sign on the dotted line. And that's not the way it is. I mean, I remember literally my first sales job, one of the first, top tips I was given was, as soon as you get an opportunity, get a cup of tea or make the customer a cup of tea or something like that. If it's any sort of meeting you've got in an office or whatever, get a cup of tea, because then you're guaranteeing yourself 15 minutes at least. Then they can't kick you out while you're still drinking tea, or vice versa. I was like, okay, but it's for me, it's if you've only got 15 minutes to make a sale, I think you need to think of it not in terms of how much can I say to this customer in 15 minutes. It's how much can I learn from that person. So how much can I listen? How many questions can I ask in that 15 minutes? Because the more you learn about your customer, the better you're going to be able to solve their problem and give them exactly what they want. If you spend 10 minutes just talking about yourself and how you've been decorating for 30 years and you're a man and boy this and this is all the wonderful stuff you can do.
Too. My brother does a bit.
It's like we've heard it all, haven't we? It's go back to people's favourite subject is themselves.
Especially the ones that say, I've got one today, I'm going to go and see something. Oh yeah, no, we've done a little bit, but we just need you. And I go to do the hall stairs and landing, and they go, yeah, that's right. And I'm like, oh, here we go. Well, I think you mentioned something there. Unfortunately, I've forgotten that trail. It was really relevant, but I know what it was. It was about the whole cup of tea thing. I think be aware, if they ask you if you want a cup of tea, they don't necessarily mean it.
Yeah.
Because my family, to get over their nerves when they've got somebody, not that it's relevant now during COVID, of course, but I remember, like, if my family, the sort of people that go, do you want a cup of tea? Or, let's put the kettle on, because they're nervous of people who they don't really know. And actually, the last thing that they want is to be making you a cup of tea and think, oh, crap, I've now got you for the next 20 minutes, because you're in front of me. I can't put cold water in it to cool it down to get rid of you quicker. But I'm lucky because I've done a lot of psychology, and I think that's really important, to be able to read people. But let's just say you're a decorator who is either time served or college trained, because, we all come from a different walk into this trade. But let's say you haven't got any psychological kind of knowledge, or the whole kind of thought on how people's minds work, body language, communication, that sort of thing, because we work a very solitary job a lot of the time. And even if you've been working on a building site, a lot of the time you might be in one room by yourself. The chippies are downstairs, the plumbers are in and out, and all that kind of stuff, the electricians, whatever it is. You don't necessarily spend a lot of time talking with people. You've got a solitary job, you come home, you're tired, you don't actually really want to talk to your wife, who's like, oh, how's it been going today? Da, 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 da. And you just think your communication skills aren't going to be great. So what does that person do? So really, you've just got to fake it. You literally have to fake it. And I'm sure the average guy is not really going to want to take videos of themselves as to what they look like on camera, or stand in front of the mirror. It's a very uncomfortable process, and I know I'm going through that, and I'm taking more videos of myself as I'm working now. I don't like it at all, but it really helps. It does really help. The bottom line is if you want your business to grow, you have to be a good communicator, and you have to know how to read people. So, and I suggest that people listen to podcasts, or they watch YouTube videos. I don't know, that's not my business to tell people what kind of videos to watch as far as communication goes. But certainly, what you're giving out to people is fantastic for that. And it's about really just the whole 2 ears, 1 mouth thing. So if people don't know how to communicate, if the thought of my suggestion of saying, oh, you've got to identify with this person, you've got to say this, do that, be this, give that air of authority. If people are out there saying, well, I can't do all that, then that's your style. You have to own your style. You might not be able to walk in, like a certain air of somebody, but be the air of you, be your style. Because at the end of the day, if your kind of thing is to not ask too many questions, you just want to listen, and I want my bedroom done, and I'm just having this, and I don't really know how to do it. You can just say, yeah, okay, I've got that, I can handle that, and I have a website. You can have a look on there, and you can see some pictures of some work that I've done, and that's fine. I think it's really important to be the real you, because that's what's going to get you the job. The worst thing is then people go in and are not being the real person that they are, because they will buy you as the person. If you don't get that job, then you were probably never going to get it, to be honest. But you do. There are some things you have to get in, and that's literally tell them that you have got what they need, to identify their need, ask the question that you want, give them the answer to the questions they might have before they even come up with them. That's one that I like to do, is that, have you thought about the clearance of the room before I come? I'm doing a little boy's bedroom next week, is there a bedroom that he can sleep in while I'm doing this for 3 days? And they're like, yeah, actually there is, that's okay. Have you thought about this, and have you thought about that? Because you're taking an interest, and you're actually showing them yourself at the same time. So that's a good way of, asking more questions is a good way.
And at the same time, you're also showing, I'm the expert here. I've done this before. I know the situation, and just simple things like that. Is there somewhere for your little boy to sleep over the next few days? That's just the fact that you can preempt that and bring that up just shows, okay, I'm dealing with a professional here. This is somebody that knows what they're doing, and that's really important, I think. So I think I want to say when people are talking about, and you said trying to learn too much and learn about communicating and stuff, that can be a little bit overwhelming, trying to do this and that and everything like that all at once. I find personally, as long as I'm learning something and I'm actively pushing myself forwards, you just sort of, I always feel like I'm moving in the right direction. So if I'm reading a book about communication or whatever it might be, you don't have to just throw everything at it from day one. I think just the fact that in the back of my head I'm learning and trying to improve, that just subconsciously will filter through, and you'll start making little tweaks and changes. And I'm a big fan of making small, tiny changes, but on a consistent basis, and it compounds into a massive difference. So I think as long as you're constantly and consistently pursuing improvement, then it doesn't matter how slowly it comes along or how tiny a step you think you're making, that it will just change your mindset in general, and you will just start making progress. But I think that the next thing I wanted to touch on was, I think a lot of people will get nervous going into sales meetings and stuff like that. I think a lot of that you can combat that with good planning and preparation. So do you have like a set plan when you walk in and you're running your quotation meetings? You have like a checklist of, right, here's 5 or 6 things I've got to do and got to check off, and then the rest of it is just, let's see how the meeting goes, let's talk to them and see what comes up?
Yeah, I've actually written down preparation as the big thing for me as well, because that's something that you must always do before you go there. So in my notes, and again, that starts right from the outset, because what you want to do, we recently spoke on the mentorship group about getting rid of the tire kickers. How do we do that? Because actually, and already I've implemented those things to ask more questions over the telephone. Because if I think to myself, nah, that's not the right job for me, and I call it a BDI, like a brand damaging image. So if I know it's an awful thing to say, but I've got myself to a certain level now where I just know that I can tell by the way someone's speaking, oh yeah, we tried a bit of it ourselves, I just need you to come and finish off. No, I'm not going to want to spend time with this person, but hang on a minute. There might be somebody they know that might be able to, let's just say, afford my services. So, you've always got to give them so much. So then I might say to them, okay, next question is, well, when do you want it done? And if they say, well, we want it done by next week, I can thankfully say, I can cross that off my list, say, actually, I'm really sorry, but I'm booked up until June. So, but I can give you a number of somebody who might be able to help. So
I think this is important. Yeah, remembering that it's a two-way thing. They're vetting you, but you're also vetting them. If they're not good for your business, and as you say, word of mouth and reputation is very important, especially in what you do in painting and decorating. Your reputation can have a huge effect on your success, and taking jobs that you're not right for and aren't right for you, it will make you unhappy. They're not going to be very fulfilling.
Did a lot of that last year.
Yeah, it's an easy trap to fall into, because sometimes you just feel like, I can't be turning away work. But then these things seem to start snowballing, and you end up getting more and more of the sort of work you don't want, and then things get worse and worse.
And going back to the point you were just making, it's even more important that you take that. It's about control. That you take the control back for whether you want to take that job, because they're not running a business. You are.
Yeah.
So they can ask 10 decorators in. But it's you who wants to make sure that that's the right job for your business to continue as you kind of rise it up the echelons of the standards of decorators that we've all got in our area. We know who the Toshers are, and we know who the really good decorators are that we probably aspire to being. I know I've got those in my town as well. So, and I'm not quite there yet. These are the people doing like hundreds of show homes across the country, not just in the locality. But I'm kind of doing the really high-end refurbishments, or the high-end one-off room sets. You might get the Hallstairs landing living dining room, or you might get the whole house. This is where I've got to now. So you need to actually make your stance and say, no, that was me, but I need to pass that on to another decorator who's they're up and coming really through what they're doing. So yeah.
So what else goes into your plan when you're running the quotation meeting? What are those key things that you want to get checked off? And do you have any sort of little tricks you can give us? A few things that you found work really well?
Hopefully it's useful. And I like to try and wrap this up quite quickly. So obviously, first of all, I've gone in and I've made my introduction. So that's really important. Also, one thing, a very small point that's really important that I always like to do, I've got shoe covers. I put shoe covers on. If I haven't, I kick myself. If I haven't got them in my pocket as I leave the van, I've got to the front door and they've already answered, I kick myself. So then I take the shoes off. And I know it sounds a small thing, and you're saying, well, what's my tick list? But this has to be part of my tick list for my own branding. Then I'll take my shoes off, and you always get the client, oh, no, it's all right, don't worry about your shoes. And I say, actually, no, I'm just going to take them off because, I've just come from site. I haven't just come from site. It's just a personal thing. I want to be seen to, again, being that professional that's happy to take my shoes off, no matter what socks I'm wearing.
You need to get some branded socks.
I do. What a blooming good
Sharon
idea. Oh my God, Norton-Marshall decorating. So I could have like paint brushes on them. There's an idea. So then I've done so then I do the next part of my process, which is the relaxation mode. This is the taking control, the authority, and this is building rapport within the first 5 minutes. That's really important. And then I say, great, show me your project, show me the space. So once I feel they're relaxed, then I'm asking them to show me the space. Now, you'll always get that one person or those few people that they'll start leading you through as soon as you come into the front door. And I like to hang back a little bit there because I'm still trying to find something that I'm going to build my rapport with. I don't like the people who start trying to lead you. Oh, come through. It's through the back here. I'm like, but then, anyway. So, and then I'm going to take my information. So, I want to know, obviously, what they're going to have done. This is really important. What's your expectation of the finish? Because I deliver a really high-end finish, but they might say, oh, we just want to just give it a freshen up. We're not really worried. And I'm always gauging whether these people are going to be worth a lot of my time or whether they're going to be worth just a little bit. And that'll all depend on the kind of, everyone gets a good aftercare, but it will be graded as to how far I think I'm going to be able to take them into the future for my business, because I've got some of the guys, some clients are people I've had with me for years because of all of these things I've consistently done. Like you've said, consistency is really important. So then I let them talk. They tell me about the project. I take measurements because if it's the right kind of job, they're going to allow me to take measurements because I now price per square meter and per linear meter. Great, so that's really important. Now, if I know they've just recently moved in, I might have already got the plan. So on Rightmove, I might still be able to access the layout plan. And in which case I can say to them, I've already got your floor plan because I lifted it off of Rightmove. And they go, oh, right, okay, well, that's cool, isn't it? Because I price by square meter, because then we know where we're going from. And that makes you look professional as well, because then that again separates you from the people that come in and going, oh, yeah, well, it's going to take me about 3 days. Yeah. And they're thinking, I thought it was only going to take you 1. So you can then give an expectation.
Do you use a laser
measure? Well, I can show you now. I've got my little laser measure here that I always take with me now.
I think they are so cool to bring that out in front of a customer. Just that, or just it's that little wow factor, that little, they're not just walking in here and guessing how long it's going to take. They're taking proper measurements. And I would say that probably, I've devised my own system over the last 3 years, and I love sort of listening to Pete, when he's sort of doing his pricing and stuff like that, but I'm thinking, but I think it's not necessarily a system. There are still people who've read, I have got Pete's books to read, by the way, so I need to read those. But when I watched his video and he's talking about pricing, I still feel like I needed something a little bit more cut and dried on pricing. And I know that's a whole different ball game. So, you'll be covering that as well. But so as far as systems, I'm always evaluating that I need to get the information I need from that appointment.
So the information I need is how big it is, what's the condition. Now we can leave a job and think, oh my God, they had a really big piece of furniture. Now I had this recently where somebody had a massive, great big fish tank and they hadn't moved it. And again, we're always learning, aren't we? Every day's a school day. They cleared out the living room, dining room area for me, put the fish tank in the kitchen. And when I got there, it needed quite a big repair and reskim behind it because the original plaster had failed. So now, thankfully, the way I priced it up, I was already building in quite a lot of preparation that involved some reskimming under the window anyway. So I thought, that's okay. I haven't lost out on anything that I've priced up. But that's because of experience. So just make sure you have a look at all the skirting boards. Because if you're thinking about it, in this weather, you're looking at is how long is it going to take for the filler to dry, how long is it going to take the caulk to dry, and you'll get the people out there go, it take an hour. Well, it doesn't actually, because winter, is it an older house? It's going to retain the cold and the humidity a lot more than a newer house. So all of those things have to come in. So take your notes, take pictures.
Yeah.
Take pictures. I can't stress enough to people, you've got to take pictures, because you'll come back and you're like, and then you're going through your pictures and you're like, oh my God, I didn't realize that there, and whatever that might be, there might be something. So take pictures from each corner of the room. If I go in Hall, Stairs and Landing, I'd go up the stairs. Then as I go up the stairs, I take the picture down the stairs. And there is a reason for that. It's because if there are spindles, you want to count how many there are. And it's little things like that. So if you come back from a job and you've got, it's a Hall, Stairs and Landing over 3 floors. Oh, but hang on a minute. Because if you haven't taken photographs and you don't know how many spindles there are, even if you're spraying, you need to know how long it's going to take you. And that's how you're going to price up, because you're pricing up the woodwork separately, obviously, to the walls and the ceiling. So you must take pictures, guys. I did some work for a decorator last year. He hadn't long started up his business, but for some reason he was doing quite well. And I said to him, okay, you've given me 4 days to do 6 rooms. Can you please send me the pictures? I just need to, that doesn't sound quite right to me. He said, I haven't got any pictures. And I was like, okay. Okay. And sure enough, when I got there, it was an old worker's cottage. Beautiful, but it was a mess. There was no way we were going to do that thing in 4 days. And it didn't. It took 6 days. So, and I vowed that day never to do decorating for another decorating company. So there again. So sorry, I've taken a long time to get to your point, but that's so always take pictures as well.
So I know Trevor Mangan, who's done a couple of these with me. He's very big on that, and he will then use those photographs. He'll do like a video, a screen share video that he records for the customers, and he will go through each slide, which is each photo that he's taken, and just highlight what he's going to do on each photograph, and sends that as part of his quotation process. And it works amazingly well, because it really helps the customer visualize what they're going to get and what the decorator is saying they're going to do. But down to simple things like how many spindles is it, that's absolutely essential. And obviously the bigger the jobs get, the more difficult it is just to walk in and guess how long it's going to take you. You just can't do it.
No, listen guys, you cannot afford to guess your work anymore, because it's not fair on yourself. I can't remember the last time I guessed a job. I literally have a system now. And like you're saying, I think Trevor's, what you're saying about Trevor there, now that sounds very time consuming to me. But what I would do and what I would say is I can identify with that, because you're adding value. And that's really important. I met someone recently, Martin from Ultimate Decor. What a chap. I'm learning a lot from him, and the way he elevates himself, by the way he separates himself from the competition, by the value that he sells his value. And it's all every step that we're taking here anyone listening is going to add value to their business, and that is what's going to set you apart from other people doing what you're doing. Yeah,
definitely. So okay, so you've done all your you've checked off everything that you needed to during the meeting. You've got all the information you need to do. You've already mentioned, so you'll set expectations. You'll tell them that they're not going to get a quotation within 24 hours. And I think
they might not actually state that. But, yeah, but I will say, I guide them then through what's going to happen. I ask them if they've got any questions. Do you have any further questions for me while I'm still here? And most of the time they say, no, I haven't, or they might have something that they might like to say, but I like to say this is how I work, because I'm following that up with quite a lot of detail on the quotation anyway. I've got all of that kind of stuff on the quotation, and then I will say, okay, I'll email you this quote, the illustration. I like to put an illustration within a few days.
I like to whenever I'm in a sales situation, perhaps I'll go to a sales meeting. It's something where I've delivered a lot of information in perhaps quite a short space of time. So it might be like a training session, or it could just be some sort of general initial sales discovery meeting, whatever it is. I like to then sort of lay out what are the next steps from my experience. And typically it can be something like, I will say to them, right, I've delivered a hell of a lot of information to you in the last half an hour or whatever. A lot of it you're going to forget, which is absolutely normal. And then I'll say something like, and I know that you're going to get in the car, and in the next half-hour drive, when you're driving home or to the office or wherever you're going, you're going to think of about 15 questions that you should have asked. Yeah. And I said, and when they pop into your head, give me a ring and I'll answer those questions. Because and just sort of just showing people that you've been down this road before, you know how it works, and look, the next steps are X, Y, Z. Call me if you need me. If not, I'm going to send you a proposal, a quote within the next 48 hours, and then I will call you 24 hours after that to go through it. Whatever your process is, just show people that this is what they can expect, and just completely guide them. And as we said earlier, just take control of the whole situation. It will make them feel a lot more comfortable. Absolutely.
And I think it almost comes as second nature to us, doesn't it? Because we're kind of salesy. So we've been in sales for a long time. But what I have learned recently is that all of those things I did learn in estate agency and in asset management and corporate stuff is directly relevant to now. And that does, like you say, come down to managing their expectations. So before you leave, you're saying, is there anything else you want to ask me while I'm here? The phone is always on, pretty much. So call me at any time. I'm going to now go away and prepare this for you, and then you can consider it. So then what I do is I do my illustration, and then I will, I know what I'm like. I don't often see my emails. It's a wonder that I actually pick any inquiries up, to be honest with you, because I've now got a lot better on that. But what I then do is I also text it over. I won't text, I'll just say, hi X, just sent you your illustration by email, but let me know if there's any questions you have. I'll let you cogitate over it, or whatever I might like to say, because I might want to put something personal in there as well. I included some mood boards with the recent one that I did. I hope you enjoy the mood boards. I had a lot of fun putting it together for you. Let me know if you've got any questions, and I'll speak to you in a few days. So, and then sometimes you get the little response back going, thank you so much, Sharon, that's really nice of you. And again, that's something that really very few decorators are doing.
Yeah, I love texting customers, and I think it is a brilliant way to communicate. You don't want to be sending the full quotation on text, but for little things like what you've just said, I've sent you this over, sending a text. And I was talking to Grant from Shake and Spear, the website builders, and he was talking about how you can put WhatsApp on your website and stuff like that.
Yeah, how I've only just done that.
It's brilliant because
I found it by accident.
It's more personal than email, and I think it's a great way to communicate, and it's a benefit for you and the customer. I think a lot of customers are scared of picking up the phone sometimes, but they'll happily text you. And I think if you open up that channel, it's another level of service, a personal level of service that people really appreciate. And I was saying to Grant, my plumber, I've needed him to come out a couple of times over the last few months, and I could never get hold of him on the phone, which is fine. He's usually on the sink or got his head down a toilet, whatever plumbers do. But I found if I text him, then he always calls me back in a couple of hours when he's got back into the van and whatever, and we sort it out. And I just find that now that's the only way I communicate with him now, is I just text him and he'll either text or call me back. And if he didn't offer that as a service, I would have gone with someone else.
Yes.
And it's simple.
We do need to make ourselves very accessible, because there is a mindset where people want us to be contactable, but they don't mind if they're not, as a client.
Yeah.
So we need to be, and I know I'm like this, I probably would be the person who'd call 3 decorators, and the one that picked up will be the one that I probably would go with. It depends. But you need to be, I wear headphones a lot when I'm working so that I can answer calls. If I've got one hand has got a kettle in one hand and a brush in the other, I just literally obviously manage to pick the phone up, because I've got the headphones on.
I bought some AirPods not long ago, and I mean, look, I didn't think they'd be much of a benefit to me. The only thing I do with my hands is make coffee. But having these AirPods,
you're busy typing these wonderful books for everybody.
Busy typing, yeah. I swear these AirPods have just revolutionised my life.
Yeah,
it's just
I would
free all the
recommend
time.
that with people. It depends, obviously.
That's brilliant. So let's have a final verdict then. So how to run the perfect sales meeting. So your key points going through from start to finish. A successful sales meeting starts from that initial phone call.
So I broke it down into, first of all, you're looking for control. So it's taking control of the situation. And then the authority. So that's kind of step 2. How can I be authoritative, and also can I show authority to the people? And then you're talking about rapport. Rapport actually comes right from the beginning, of course, but then you want to make a conscious effort. Like, if you don't feel that there is much of a rapport, find a way to build it. So that if you're a petrol head and they've got, a GT4 on the driveway, you could be like, hey, yeah, I've heard a lot about that, tell me what your experience is right now, tell me about your decorating need. Move it on quickly to the need of the decorating, and then identify with their need for your decorating. And don't be frightened to say, what made you choose me to come and invite, why did you invite me here? I feel really honored that, I realize it's not easy to invite strangers into your home. What made you feel that you could invite me? And they might not be able to answer that question. Oh, I just phoned 3 people and you answered the phone. I've had one of those before. And then you just say, well, great. And, because all the while, the more you can get them to identify, the better off you're going to be. You leave a lasting impression. And then again, so it's about the managing expectations.
Yeah.
That's where I break it down to. So control, authority, rapport, identify, and managing expectations.
Perfect. That is absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much. That's really good. And we'll mention again Pete Wilkinson's book on pricing. You need to get reading that.
I know.
If you've got a copy and you've not read it.
Hey, maybe I can teach him a few things about pricing. I don't know yet.
Perfect.
There's no excuse, because I had them on the shelves at Paint Tech the other week and I didn't pick them up, which is annoying. I should have done that, but I'll get them next time I'm there.
It's a brilliant book. I think it should be part of the curriculum, that all decorators should read that book. And I hear on the grapevine there's a second pricing book coming soon. So
there may well be.
So everybody go and read Pete's book. It's brilliant.
I will.
Sharon, thank you so much for everything today. I think this is going to be massively valuable for a lot of decorators. Where can we find you if we want to connect with you on social media and stuff like that? How can we find out more?
Thank you very much. So I'm on Instagram at Norton-Marshall Property. I've got my website, which is www.nortonmarshall.co.uk, and on Facebook as Norton-Marshall Decorating. It has got murals on the end of it, Norton-Marshall Decorating and Murals, but that's me. So yeah, connect.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. If you want more from me, you can go to my website, jmears.co.uk/ebook. And if you sign up to my mailing list, I'll send you a free copy of my latest ebook, 7 Marketing Secrets Guaranteed to Grow Your Painting and Decorating Business. Sharon, once again, thank you so much for today. This has been absolutely brilliant. And can I persuade you to come on again soon?
Yes, you can. There's so much that we were going to talk about, wasn't there? So, yeah. Oh, you've got me for a bit longer, I reckon. Yeah, no worries at all. Thank you so much. It's a great pleasure.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. See you soon.
Bye.